In art, everyone likes stories, and these are mine. Sometimes things prosper where they shouldn't. My brothers used to call me Face Man when I was little. I guess I used to make a lot of faces. They were ruthless, and they were destroying me for it. If I was watching TV, I was making a face. They pounded on me endlessly. But the thing about this is it hardens you. It makes you form a crust, a shell, a husk. But that didn't make me feel better about it. I still felt bad on the inside. And as a result, I buried it. I hid it away. I never touched it. As a teenager, I thought I could jump back in on the ambitious stuff and do portraits again. I thought this time I was going to be able to handle things, keep it all under control. I was going to create a real stoic man. Instead, I was really overwhelmed and I just wiped out. And I was so affected that I didn't even want to try it again. I just wanted to put it away and be free and not go back there for a long time. But then by about 29, I got challenged again. Some girl that I knew wanted me to do a commission. She had this idea of a cool skull that she could live with. And so I took that on and I dove in again and I just was determined to get through what I could never get through before and iron out all the wrinkles. And I did. And I was kind of pleased. And then the big moment came where she got to have a look at what I've been working on. And that didn't go so well. She was like, no, can't not live with that. She was very afraid of it. And I could kind of understand because I don't think I would want to live with it either. But that kind of rejection should have crippled me in my painting infancy. But this was the new me. I did not feel fragile. I felt ready. I have been avoiding this painting for 25 years. At first, I thought it was just a cool painting, a cool way to mouth off, break some mirrors, put things together that shouldn't be together. Then it became something I didn't understand, and that was upsetting. I'm not here to tell you it's a great painting. I don't want to try and explain it to you. I barely understand it myself. I'm just here to tell you why it's important to me. It represented a very important turning point in my career. Prior to this, all my work was conceived and this is the first painting that was received. Sometimes I like to think of myself as a printer. And with this painting, it was sort of like I left the printer on and didn't tell it what to print. And what it actually printed was a sheet that said, I know what your secrets are, and I'm going to tell everyone. Man, I hate secrets. And I hated that I had one. But worse than all that is that it was using my history to tell its story. And it was pointing people in the direction of details from my life that I didn't want people to see. It wasn't any really big deal. I wasn't hiding some big secret. In the early 80s, we got involved in a Christian ministry. You know, we were looking for hope and we needed community, and we got that. It turned out to be a really good thing. We had a lot of great experiences. We even gave up a year of our life to go on a mission, just to spread the word and talk with people. We let them send us anywhere they wanted. We had no idea until the day we were leaving. And I remember getting that envelope, and I had my fingers crossed. I was hoping for Hawaii or California. My mom was like, stay positive. She opened the envelope. Waco, Texas. She screamed, Wacko? What is that? It didn't matter. Waco turned out to be a great place. It was not yet infamous. It was just a regular town at that point, but these were my teen years, and I had a great time. It was during the same time that the ministry began to fall apart. We stepped out and tried to do something really great, and everybody watched, and then we failed, and then we had to come home and eat punches. Lots of punches. At the end of the 80s, people were really pretty down on Christian ministries. I mean, they were in the news left and right, and there were corruption and scandal all over the place. It took a few years, but it eventually settled down. And then the Waco siege happened. To tell you the truth, I could live with the mistakes. We make decisions, and they don't always work out. But the part I was having a real hard time living with is the fact that the choices I was making weren't just turning out to be wrong choices. They were turning out to be monumentally wrong. I was wandering into things that were so much bigger than me. Hi, I'm Jim. I'm oblivious to my own work. That's how a conversation with my friend began. And she replied with, I don't think you realize just how oblivious you really are. And I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, you're talking about all these things that you didn't grasp, and you're still not mentioning the one real elephant in the room. I was like, perplexed. You don't get it, do you? You painted a visionary painting 7 months before 9/11, and you don't see any parallels. That sucked. I just wanted to make something I could be proud of. And instead, I just felt totally stupid. If Chrysler is the first painting that I received, then the subject of chapter 2 would have to be the largest and most involved artwork that I ever received. Standing 10 feet tall, it took 3,000 hours and a year to complete. It's actually 11 pieces assembled together in one big monument. And I call it King James. But not because it's a painting of LeBron, but because it was a crown that I thought I could carry. In 2006, I was really losing faith in myself quietly, and I needed something. Andy Warhol believed that it wasn't enough to just create a great artwork. He thought that artists had a responsibility to catapult that artwork into the mainstream any way possible. So in mid 2006, I began thinking about this King James thing. I started thinking that I could make some claim and gain some hype, therefore catapulting my work into the mainstream, just like Warhol. This wasn't something I wanted to do, but I lined up a show anyway, my first solo show, and we were going to call it The Real King James. We did everything that we thought we needed to do to make it successful, and it was a complete flop. Nobody attended, no sales, no attention except negative attention, and it was over. And I never knew that the real hard part was going to be after the show. After the show, I had to begin the process of trying to store this thing. It was enormous and heavy, hard to transport, and even harder to find a space to store it. I ended up finding a warehouse that my friend had his business in, and I was able to store it there for a long time. But the weight of it always bothered me. Protecting it always bothered me. I was in conflict with it all the time. It was always in the back of my mind. And in 2022, I had to face things. I had to either find legitimate storage for it or let it go forever. I couldn't let it go. I put so much time into it. It was worth so much to me for some reason. And then it became clear. This was my lesson. This was my trophy that I had gone through this lesson. I was learning the things that I did wrong in this and the ways that I wasn't going to go forward. King James was the last time I made a misaligned painting, where I listened to the trash, the static, instead of listening to guidance. So in one swift move, I cut his head off. I destroyed him. I recovered something I vitally needed. Maybe it was strength. Maybe it was my own dignity and integrity. Or maybe it was just the visceral thrill of knowing I fixed something that I was willing to live with for 15 years. I was willing to uphold a mistake that I made because I didn't want to go backward, because I didn't want to give it up. But in 2022, I gave it up, and I changed King James forever. This is probably my favorite topic to paint. I just loved returning to it over and over again. It was so fun to come back and know that I was going to live inside the city and just play and experience all the things that are fun about city. It was a lot like playing with Legos as a kid, building everything up and tearing it down and rebuilding it again just to do it differently. Everything was just an exploration, and it was so fun. Never intend to paint the people in my life. It just happens. I didn't know how to see you, Ma. I see you now. Dad just wanted good hair. I just wanted to be like you. You let me hang around. We were like twins. I can't believe your names showed up in this. I could see nothing but white. There was a knock. I opened it. Nothing. He's already inside. I could still feel the charge. He's still inside. When I was 23, I got my first Amex card. It gave me access. I bought my first computer. Everything opened up. And then it broke. I was denied. I was in collections. Years later, when I built this, I thought I could build my own version of it. I built it on 2 doors. I made a template. I stamped it out. I tried to give it structure, authority, and value. but it failed to. So I went after it with pliers and a blowtorch. It was odd that I would get close enough to interact with him, even if it was only through early social media. I didn't like him because he was famous. I liked him because he seemed to be able to see things. He saw me and the work I was putting out. He never saw it in person, but the way he responded, it felt precise. He said I needed to paint for 45 days straight, no breaks. He said I would understand when it was over. I had worked 5 and 6 days a week regularly. I didn't think 7 would be much different. Something in the way he saw it was enough for me to follow. By painting every day, I was never shutting down, never resting, never resetting. Week after week, I was running hotter and hotter. I didn't lose my mind, but I felt on the edge of it. I expected to see real change, but overall, it was still the same. I never knew what he was pointing at or what he thought would happen. He left me alone. In the end, those 45 days weren't about painting better. They were about learning. It was time to stop giving my authority away. Jasper Johns painted the flag, and I really respected that. But by 2003, I didn't believe America looked like that anymore. That squeaky clean image was gone. I believed we had entered something darker, and so my flag had to carry that. I called it the Patriot Act. I couldn't beat these. For years, I worked on a handful of paintings I just couldn't resolve. Each failed attempt was like a layer, and some of them had as many as 50 layers. This is where I got stuck with it. I couldn't take it any further. None would resolve. I just couldn't get them there. They definitely stayed with me, though. I couldn't finish them, and at the same time, I couldn't put them down. I knew for a long time what I wanted to do, but it just wasn't possible. There were so many layers, I had no idea what was under there. I thought it would be a lot of fun to find out. Then I finally found a way. I sanded them. I ground them down. I didn't know what would come through. Some of them opened up. Some didn't. After that, I left them alone. Except this one. This one didn't feel finished when the sanding was over. So I went back in. I couldn't beat them by adding more. I had to find another way. I took architecture and drafting in school, and I worked as a residential painter most of my life. So I can build a house. That was never the problem. I could make something that looked right, it just didn't hold up. The majority didn't survive. I painted over thousands. My problem wasn't making a house. It was making a home. I moved a lot as a kid. It was constant. It was corrosive, and it's affected me ever since. I kept trying to make it work. I'm not sure I really knew how. At one point, it started to feel possible. The thing moving over 100 times does is it strips things away. Trophies and certificates and souvenirs. The little pieces of your life. By the time I was an adult, I had almost nothing left. The only two things I had were an alarm clock and a photo album my mom had made for me. In 2010, I had 4 storage facilities and 2 of them flooded. I experienced key losses. Some paintings got hit. At first sight of all the damage, it's hard not to think about the insurance and the water damage and the mold and all the work it was going to take to clean it up. My thoughts went very quickly to, where are my most important items? It wasn't about the paintings. I remember plowing very quickly through boxes. I knew what I had to find, and I looked through several. And then I found it. I was devastated. The album my mother had given me. The only proof I was alive. Painting itself had become radical. I couldn't find any reasons to paint. I had accumulated every reason to not paint. I had been struggling for years. In truth, there had only been one reason good enough to paint, and that was joy. Joy never failed. So I set up one last epic battle over joy. I did something dangerous and even reckless. I bought a monumental canvas. I was brutally low on paints, but I thought I could survive on what I had. I disappeared into joy. And before I knew it, I was done. The canvas was covered, and I was out of paint. I had done what I wanted to do. I remained in joy and covered the whole canvas. Then I looked at the clock and the horror set in. Only an hour had passed. I could not be done in an hour. It wasn't enough. I needed more. I should have been able to protect my experience and the joy, but I didn't. I was out of paint and out of canvas, yet I continued. And I obliterated everything I fought to create and protect. And for what? What was supposed to be an epic triumphant return to painting had become my most bitter wipeout. I set out to make a playground of the canvas, and instead it became the same battlefield it always was. And that's when I made the most irrational decision of my career. Instead of walking away, I doubled down. I bought another canvas. I rushed into the very fight I thought I could never win, against the villain I was always sure would destroy me. And I was going to do it with no paint. It seemed like pure suicide. I was like, you want a battlefield? I'll give you a battlefield. The wildest part was, I went into it thinking it was a battlefield, and when I left, it felt more like a playground. I guess Goliath works for me now.